Once the cakes are frosted and chilled, just enough so the buttercream is fully hard, it's time to add the support infrastructure. I prefer to use wooden dowels, especially for Topsy Turvy cakes. First, mark the top of the cake where you plan to insert the dowels. The dowels should go about 1/2 to 1 inch inside the outline of where the tier above will rest. Here I'm eyeballing it, but I recommend using a parchment paper guide that is the same size as the base of the tier that gets stacked above, in order to position your dowels correctly. Second, insert lollipop sticks or long skewers into the cake. Insert them at a slight angle, matching the slope of the cake. You want the dowels to be vertical once the cake is assembled, so you have to account for the fact that this tier will be sitting on an angle. Third, mark the stick to measure the height of the cake. Since the cake is sloped, you will need to do this more than once, since the height of some of the dowels will be different. On this tier, I'm measuring twice, since each pair of holes is matching in height. Be sure to keep careful track of which sticks go with which cake tier. Fourth, use the sticks to mark wooden dowels, then cut and sand them down to size. I recommend marking the dowels 2 mm shorter than the marks on the sticks, so there's no chance that the dowels end up being too long. If the dowels extend beyond the surface of the frosting, that could compromise the cake's stability once it's stacked. Make sure the matching dowels are true before inserting them into the cake. Press down on each one to make sure they hit the cardboard base. For larger tiers that require a star configuration of dowels, some of the heights may match, but it's possible that they will all be different, so each hole should be measured separately. For the thicker center dowels, use a saw to cut them down to size. To make room in the cake for thicker dowels, I recommend coring out holes using bubble tea straws or an apple core. If you don't remove the cake that will be displaced by a thick dowel, you run the risk of cracking the surface of the cake from excess pressure. This is the base tier of the cake, which requires thicker dowels all around. And here's the top tier, which requires no vertical support dowels since nothing gets stacked on top. At this point, I recommend decorating each tier separately before assembling the cake. I also recommend placing a piece of parchment paper on the top surface of each of the lower tiers. It should be the same size as the base of the tier that gets stacked above. This will help guide your placement as well as prevent the tiers from sticking together, so you can shift them around if you need to when you stack them. It will also make it easier to disassemble the cake when it's time to cut it. Once the tiers are stacked, prevent them from shifting side to side by passing long pointed dowels through the cardboard into the tier below. You may need to use a hammer to penetrate the cardboard. I call these horizontal supports, since they prevent the tiers from shifting horizontally. Once all the tiers are stacked with pointed dowels holding them securely in place, you may add the topper. To learn more about the methods you've seen in this series, find the links to more tutorials below.